And now with more on this big day is journalist and JNS Jerusalem Bureau Chief, Alex Traiman. Hi, Alex.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So Prime Minister-designate was finally able to tell the president that he can form a government. It was right down to the last minute. It took over 7 weeks. Why such a struggle?
Well, really, the issue was not over who would be the coalition partners, but what would be the program that the coalition would try to enact once it was in office. And so you had bitter negotiations actually over what would be the actual terms of the platform. And so that kind of slowed down the negotiations. But it looks like the partners are pretty happy with what they've negotiated.
The new Knesset coalition will try to pass legislation to pass the final hurdles earlier next week. Do you foresee any bumps along the road? And if not, when will the new government be sworn in?
The deadline to swear in the government is January 2nd. There's reports that Netanyahu will try to get his coalition sworn in earlier than that, possibly by the end of next week. I think you might read about potential hurdles in the media, but I think by and large, the process is coming down to the wire, and most of the coalition partners are pretty satisfied with what they've negotiated.
The new government is being portrayed as Israel's most right-wing and religious government ever. Is this an accurate portrayal? What do you expect the government's major policy goals will be?
Well, this certainly is a right-wing government. There's no doubt about it. What is clear is that the left wing actually threw this country into about 4 years of electoral instability. And it was only the right-wing partners that remained loyal to Benjamin Netanyahu, who proved to be the people's choice for prime minister in the last election. So you do have a right-wing government. But I think that what this government has the promise of providing is actually stability. There's a good chance that this government could last its entire term. And so while the government will advance policies that would be different than what the left wing would want, it's the left wing which really controls much of the Israeli media that's saying that this is a very extreme government. But, we're going to have to judge the government based on its policies and not on the campaign slogans. And I think that you're going to see that a lot of the status quo that has been in place for much of Prime Minister Netanyahu's long tenure, including the last 12 years in office, will remain the same. I don't think that you're going to see this country suddenly taking a major turn to the right. So I think a lot of it is really just bluster.
Alex, the opposition isn't really loving this new deal. How do you see them acting now?
Of course, they don't like it because they tasted the seat of power. Yair Lapid was in the prime minister's chair for a few moments, and basically every single member of Israel's left wing was in a position of power for a short period during the last government, and now they're all relegated back to the backbenches of the opposition. So, of course, they're not happy about it, and they're going to certainly try as much as possible to give the coalition as much difficulty as they can. They're going to be a very, very vocal opposition. It will be very different than when Netanyahu sat in the opposition. Netanyahu and his partners were basically boycotting votes, allowing the previous government to pass votes 61-0. You can count on this opposition led by Yair Lapid to be much more vocal, to be much more vigorous in their opposition of basically everything that this coalition is going to try to accomplish.
Do you see the new government lasting for 4 years?
I think that this government does have a good potential to last the entire period simply because the partners have no place to go. I mean, Netanyahu wants to stay in power as long as possible. We know that. And if the right-wing natural allies of Netanyahu would break off the government, what would be the result? I mean, the result would either be an alternative government or you'd go to new elections. And if you would go to new elections, the best possible scenario for them would be the same situation that they're possibly in or that they're already in. So why would they break up? So I think that unless there's some kind of major crisis on an issue that we can't foresee for the time being, I do think that the coalition partners, particularly religious Zionists, were very firm to negotiate exactly what they want at the outset of the government. And as long as Netanyahu remains true to the agreements, I don't really see any reason why the coalition partners would bolt before the end of the term.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Good luck to the new government.
Thank you so much.